I'm Tanya Peel. I'm creating a show mixed with family recipes and vintage finds. When I find a vintage dish, I'm always wondering, if you could talk, what would your story be? Where did you come from, and whose hands have touched you? Whose home have you been in, and how far did you travel to get to me? After discovering a new vintage piece, I'm almost always thinking about a meal my mom or granny prepared for me, how that made me feel to eat something so delicious made with love, and how I can serve up my own creations to feed my family and friends. It's how I show love. So if you think about it, it makes sense to blend the two, because every dish has a story.
All right, episode 1, Copco calling all cooks and Hamburger Casserole. So this dishware is called Copco. It's enamel-coated cast iron, and it's a workhorse. I have collected several sizes at this point, but I'm always looking for more. While they're no longer manufactured, you can find them at vintage markets, eBay, or Etsy, or I've found mine at local estate sales. They are at the top of my list of go-to cookware. Think about it. It's lasted all of this time, and it's a beauty. It's retro, it has personality, the colors are vibrant, and they're very collectible. The cookware was founded by Samuel Farber in 1960. If that name rings a bell, Farber, it's because his uncle Simon founded the cookware company Farberware in 1900, which is still going strong today, making cookware and bakeware. Though owned by an American company, it was manufactured in Europe, likely due to the European manufacturing capabilities and traditions, and the skills in producing high-quality cookware, particularly the cast iron, which was Copco's core product line. Sam used a foundry in Europe called Morso to manufacture his dishes. Morso has had a very long history that still continues to this day. They began making cast iron stoves and heaters dating all the way back to 1853. Today they manufacture high quality and wood burning stoves, outdoor ovens, and fireplaces. So if you think about it, that's 178 years. You know you're making quality when something has been around that long. I'm sharing all of this because if you dig a little, you'll find old advertisements with the name Copco and Morso together, and this is why. Early on, Sam brought in famed designer by the name of Michael Lax, who was also an American, but clearly influenced by Scandinavian design, which is easy to see. Working with Copco was Lax's first real break as a solo designer, and you'll often see on the bottom of these dishes his name stamped on the ones that he had a design influence on. So I've read, Sam and Michael met while Michael was dropping off his daughter at a nursery school. In conversation, Sam announced that he was setting up the company Copco, and as history goes, a 20-year collaboration and even a longer friendship ensued. In addition to collaborating with Copco, Lax was freelance, and he worked with Dansk, Tupperware, Mikasa, and Rosenthal. He also worked with marble and cast bronze later on in his career. And so if you think about it, he was a sculptor at heart, a real true artist. So when it comes to the use of the cookware, these pieces were quickly adopted by American women seeking to simplify their meals and minimize the dishwashing. The advent of the pieces that married stylish form and function meant that the casseroles and stews and cakes no longer had to be transferred from pot to dish. The cookware and serveware were all in one. I'll demonstrate that today in the dish that I'll be sharing with you. So a story about the recipe before we get cooking. I'm from the South, and casseroles and Southern cooking go together like chips and dip and peanut butter and jelly. Casseroles have been around since ancient times. It's a complete meal in one pot, and it was an affordable way to feed families during hard times. For us Southerners, it's the centerpiece of family gatherings. For me, it represents comfort food at its best. Growing up, my favorite casserole my mom made on the regular was a hamburger noodle casserole. There was never a specific name, we just called it Hamburger Casserole, and it always made me very happy. The beginning of my love affair with carbs, if I think about it. In addition to my vintage cookware obsession, I have a large collection of vintage cookbooks, and I'm always adding to it. A wonderful collectible series is called Calling All Cooks and continues to be in great demand. The cookbook's origins lie in a community service project by the AT&T Telecom pioneers of Alabama. It was a tool for fundraising, and all the recipes were contributed by the membership. It's a giant collection of recipes passed down through generations. These are precious dishes that my mom, my granny, my family members made. If you were born in the South, you were very familiar with them. So Calling All Cooks is pretty legendary. The first edition was published in 1982. The initial success of the cookbook led to the creation of a series resulting in a total of 4 volumes. I'm not sure when I got my first volume, but it was definitely from an estate sale, volume 1. As soon as I got home, I went through it page by page. At some point, I stumbled across my favorite childhood casserole. Barbara Spivey from the Mobile Council calls it the crowd pleaser casserole, made the exact same way as my mama made it. It just brought the biggest smile across my face when I saw it in print. Over time, she started adding a little cheddar cheese to it, and that's still how I make it today. So, let's get busy making crowd pleaser casserole. Anytime I'm ever doing onions, I get a little olive oil and a little butter. You want the pan, once you hear this little sizzle, I'm going to saute my onions. I like to season as I go. Oopsies. Put as much pepper as you like. I like a lot. We're going to let those cook down just a little bit till they're translucent, about a minute or 2, maybe even 3. So this is what we were saying before. So what's so wonderful about this dish is that you can saute everything on the stove, right? Pull it off, mix all the casserole, put it in the oven, and then it can also go to the table to serve out of. One pot cooking. I just do this just so it can cook more evenly. And so we're just going to brown the meat. A little more salt, a little more pepper. Calls for pimento. You can put it in now or when you're mixing all the casserole up. I like to put it in now because it's got a little moisture in it, and so it'll cook some of that moisture out. If you happen to have a meat that really drains off and has a lot of liquid in it and your high heat doesn't evaporate that, or it has a lot of fat, as you can see if you look into the bottom of this pan, there's really not that much. There's a little. I like that. It adds flavor, I think. So I leave it in. If you want to drain yours, you can. So you can see that doesn't take long at all. I'm going to turn off the flame. I'm going to move this over here onto a hot pad. So when I grew up, when my mom used to make this pasta for me, she always used shells. I like them. She used to use the tiny shells. I like to use the large ones so that when you're folding everything in, you have the meat and the corn and everything that gets caught in the little shells. So I pre-cooked this a little al dente. So it called for like 14 minutes on the box, and I did it for 10 because it's going to continue to cook when you have it in the oven. All right, calls for a can of corn. I did Mexican street corn. It's got a little bit of like fire roasted action happening in that. If you want plain corn, you can do plain corn. Drain it first. That goes in. You have a cup of sour cream. A can of cream of chicken soup. Full fat, no fat-free, 2%. No. And you give it a good stir. The original recipe does not call for cheddar cheese, but my mom always added it, and I have continued to add it. If you don't like cheddar cheese, you don't have to. If you like a different kind of cheese, you could do that. I want to make sure that it's all stirred up really nice. So I have like probably a cup and a half of cheddar cheese. I'm going to hold back just a little bit for when I do the topping. Very simple. You can whip this up on a work night, especially when you have a bunch of kids. Kids love this, although I don't have kids. But I have a feeling that kids love this. I mean, when I was a kid, I loved this. I make it for my friends. It's comfort food, I guess. That's a good way to describe it. So, as I say with anything, is that it's always good to go along and taste everything. There's nothing better than your taste buds. I think it needs a little more salt, a little more pepper, because I love pepper, and I even love red pepper. Another little taste. Very good. Before I put it in the oven, I just like to wipe down the sides a little. So we'll have a topping for this, but I'm going to bake it for 20 minutes. And then the last 10 minutes, I'll put the topping on. All right, so we're going to get about, I don't know, probably like a quarter cup of butter. We're going to heat it. I'm going to melt the butter. And then I've got a mixture of panko and more Parmesan cheese. And basically going to melt the butter and pour that over it, and that's going to make the topping of our casserole. So I let the butter cool just a touch, and then this is my panko, Parmesan, and a little bit of that cheddar cheese that I had left over. And I'm going to just pour the butter in. And then I'm just going to make sure that the butter coats the topping. Yummy. I can already smell the panko and the cheese. Makes me happy. I try not to eat this stuff all the time, but I certainly love to eat it every once in a while. All right, so that's good enough. I'm going to pull the casserole out, put the topping on, and bake it for another 10 minutes. Make sure you don't forget that the dish is hot and put your hands on it because it will hurt. So yeah, just a nice little crunchy crust. So we'll put this back in for 10 more minutes until it's browning on the top and the cheese is melted. Get your gloves on. Back in it goes. That looks delicious. If you want things to be a little more crisp on the top, you can just put your broiler on and watch it and do it for a minute or two and get it a little more darker if that's what you prefer. I'm happy with that. I'll let this sit for just about 5-10 minutes and then I'll be ready to spoon it out. It'll be delicious. One for me. Little chives. I love chives. Reminds me of childhood. It's delicious, comforting.